a half behind on this. Remember it. So this is episode 5, the mid-season one, not the newest Life Death Part 2. So this is the one. I just watched it last night, Mike. So spoilers. I can we go ahead and say spoilers for X-Men 97?
Yes.
Going into this since 2 weeks old. Great.
Yeah, there's gonna be. Yeah, we're gonna have spoilers in and out for the rest of the episode with X-Men 97 and also Rebel Moon. So I gotta assume that there's some Venn diagram crossover there.
Yeah, exactly. So spoiler warning here. X-Men 97. I've been putting this episode off because the news for X-Men 97 hits me before I'm able to watch them because my wife has to watch these shows. You haven't got to watch Life Death Part 2 because your wife wants to watch it. So like, I'm like, okay, we gotta do this. So I've been going through the news articles last week and hitting it. I've just been putting this off because this episode is so fucking heavy, like emotionally, like on me as a person. I'm like, I don't want to watch people die. I don't want to watch, one of the biggest massacres in X-Men comic books and in the animated thing happen on screen for this, especially with the death of Gambit, right? One of our favorite characters growing up. It's still to this day, Gambit's just such a smooth badass with a Cajun accent, and
so cool,
to see him die on screen.
Power set, awesome visuals to his look. I mean, I wasn't expecting any of it at all. Like the episode just kind of like lures you in with just a lot of like political intrigue. They had been talking about Genosha this whole season so far, and we finally get to go there. We're kind of in the middle of the season, so I thought maybe they were going to be toning it back for this episode. Right. They're like, oh, this is where we save our budget. This is where we save our, a lot of our hours in, the animation.
Well,
department.
you also say
I was wrong.
I think also in the story arc setup, right? In the second half, you're either at their best or their worst, right? Like you've set everyone up to be the best as they go into to lose it all, or they've lost it all and they have to build it back up. And everybody lost it all. We lost all. We have the potential death of Magneto. We didn't see his body, but we did see Gambit die and Rogue touch him and say, obviously the line repeated twice in this, I can't feel you, which was just awful. But he did, in his last moments as a heroic sacrifice, blow up the Kaiju Sentinel with one of the coolest attacks ever because, obviously he can make things kinetically destroy. And I was like, oh, he got stabbed. He wasn't able to do his cool bike trick. He's going to die here. But no, he took the Kaiju down with it. So he was a hero at the end of the day. But boy, it's just a fucking gut punch, dude. Like, I was like, this sucks.
I mean, that last scene was was like visually so impressive, like with the fidelity of like the vehicles, like you're talking about with like the motorcycle and the action and just the absolute dread that this kaiju brings over, like just blasting all of these like just innocent mutants. And they really just make you think like, how are they going to get out of this one? Like how can like
who's
one singular mutant?
Yeah,
it's like they have like is Magneto considered an Omega?
Yeah,
level mutant?
That's what he says. They when they right before they blast him and he protects the kids, they say Omega level detected, and it is Magneto.
And he can't even really make a dent on this. And I brought this up before about this show, but the coolest thing about an animated world is like your suspension for the world is so much looser compared to if you're watching something live action. Now, if I was watching like a live action incarnation of a Gambit or really any superhero character, and they were going up against something that big, I would think like, oh, you have to show me so much more to convince me that they could destroy this. But like, it's Gambit. Like he's got this mystery to him. We don't know everything that there is about his powers. He can make objects like blow up and stuff like that. But what is he capable of if he goes
what's
to
the biggest
of, like,
level
risking his whole life? And it's just like, oh, it's cool. Like he gets stabbed. He's like, I'm going out on top. You're going to remember it. I'm going to blow you up. And it's like so amazing. And then it ends on that emotional, like last line with Rogue. And I was like, me and my wife were just shook. We just look at each other and we're like, did that just happen?
And I would say, you've been talking about the animation and all that stuff. And I could give two shits about it because it looks like the original, but like from a storytelling point of view, for you to care that much about these characters, right? That to me, that's a huge win overall. Like to care about these fictional characters. You have Magneto, spewing off, why would we let a war criminal run a country? He's like, well, everyone who's running other countries, why do you let them be war criminals kind of thing? It was a very fun thing. But the relationship, love triangle between Gambit, Rogue, and Magneto, you get to see that history there. But then also on the other side, there's like the Cyclops, Madeline Pryor, Jean Grey kind of love triangle going on, right? Because they're clones of each other. Who's real? What's real? That really wasn't resolved either. It was just a very, again, like I said, emotionally draining episode overall. And you're like, you care about all these characters, and you're like, I want them to succeed. I want the mutants to have that life, that peace that they're working so hard for. And it just ends. Even it cuts to black before Rogue's line's even done, right? Like it just ends with a voice over an empty screen, and I can't believe they're able to pull it off and make you care about all those characters along the way. I will say
we have.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you first.
I mean, we haven't been hearing too much from the creator of the show because obviously just before it aired, they were fired and we don't know why, but they have been going on at least podcasts being interviewed, and he said that this episode was kind of meant to be the turn in the series where the first half of the show was just supposed to be pure nostalgia, bring you back to the 90s of what it was like to be a kid watching X-Men, and then after this it's like, oh no, the show is going to be like a whole new animal after this episode.
And he mentioned that this is kind of inspired, quote unquote, by 9/11, right? Like literally, people who grew up watching the show are living in a post 9/11 world. Like, what does that attack on your home country kind of look like, and how do you resolve that? And I'm interested to see their pickups, because the next episode, you haven't watched it yet, episode 6, doesn't touch on this yet. It kind of mixes in with some of the other things kind of going on. So I'm interested to see where they pick up and how do they work through this kind of along the way, because there's a lot to be caught up in the last 4 episodes. And me and Mike were talking before the show started. There's 1 episode and then there's a 3-part ender, like the last 3 are the ending part. So how are they going to wrap this up? I know there's more seasons and talks, at least a season 2, which would be great. I want to know kind of what's going on. I will say, I will put an asterisk on all this, Mike, though. And you know why I put an asterisk on this episode? Remember it. Because we get to see Cable for the first time in X-Men 97. And he shows up and he's like, hey, get him out.
I often forget that Cable is there. So, and also an animated show is always one step closer to the origin of a comic book than a live action adaptation is. So if we're one step closer or only one step removed from a comic book, no one ever really truly dies in a comic book world. So there could be a way to bring.
And what's Cable's power? I mean, what's his power? What's he known for? He's known for time travel. Yeah.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah, no, you're fine. He's known for time travel, right? So if he's there and he got sent back in time, he's like, I'm too late. Is he trying to come back and stop this? Like, is there going to be one of the episodes? I'm not saying that it's for sure. They could leave this as it is, and that's perfectly fine with me. They don't need to undo it. But is he trying to come back and stop this moment from happening, right, overall? And what would those repercussions have along the way? So maybe there is some time travel down the road where they do this or save some of the people. I don't know. But when Cable appears, that makes me remember, there's a reset button, right? There is one reset button along the way that we could lean into. So I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I love X-Men 97, Mike, every week. We had a delay on this one. I didn't get to watch it, but as soon as I finished it, I'm watching the next one. Like, I'm binging these 2 in a row because I got to get in here. So I can't wait for you to watch Life, Death Part 2, and we get to talk about that. Anything else you want to add about it before we jump into our movie review for the episode?
Oh God, let's get it over with.
Okay, so this weekend is